Hello and welcome to Fearless DIY Music. My name is Tristan Lass, and today I'd like to talk about one of my favorite brands of overdrive / distortion pedals that I absolutely adore. It would be the family of Butler products, known as the Tube Driver series of pedals. Butler, just a little bit of history here, just to kind of put things in context. From what I've read, Butler began developing this particular circuit using an actual, tube in the circuit to create overdrive and distortion in the late 70s. And then by the mid 80s, he had pretty well codified it. And there was the 4-knob beige version that looks a lot like this one right here. That is the most famous version of the tube driver, the one used by, Eric Johnson and David Gilmour and people like that. So these pedals do, and then this particular pedal right here, this is a favorite of Billy Gibbons. So these are well-known pedals. Butler is shrouded in some mystery. There were times when his company was kind of co-opted by Chandler, or, some things were made overseas, some things were made in America. And I'm not going to go into the entire history of TubeWorks and BK, but I will have in the description below, I'll have a link to what I think is the most authoritative single place where you can read about most of tube driver history. So, how did I arrive at loving these pedals so much? Well, I began my journey in the early 90s with this exact pedal. Not this particular one, but this exact model. I had the 9-volt 3-knob tube driver. It was my main overdrive / distortion pedal for quite some time on my board throughout the 90s. I unfortunately lost that pedal in a move. A pedal board got left behind, and I also lost some vintage DoD stuff in that incident. But about 3 years ago, I purchased this one as kind of a, I guess, nostalgia. I was like, boy, I'd like to have another one of those. So I bought this one. And much to my surprise, this is a 3-knob, 9-volt. This was considered the cheapo version. Butler created this one to have a more affordable price point in his lineup, so that people could, and also so that it wouldn't have the dedicated wall plug like most of them do. You can just use any 9-volt power supply off of your pedal board to power these. And that makes these super convenient for just swapping in and out. Now, this particular one is a USA made. It has goop on the circuit board. There's a piece of cardboard wedged under the circuit board to hold it steady. And it's hand etched with BK on the back, and the serial number is also hand etched. In BK's own words, he did make a handful of these himself, and this is one of those. So I feel highly honored that I ended up with one of these pedals, and I didn't pay that much for it because these are not nearly as highly coveted as the original 4 knobs, or even the ones that Butler is still producing to this day that are 4-knob to 5-knob. The 5th knob being you pay a little bit extra to have a bias on the unit. So I'm going to grab my guitar, turn it off here for a second, and we're going to start with the 3-knob. This pedal produces a crunchier and brighter sound with a little bit more untamed overdrive and distortion than this particular 901 unit. We're going to talk about this one in more detail when we get to it. So, but this pedal is kind of, it's a wild pedal. It can be a wild pedal, and it takes a little getting used to reining it in. Right now, the way that I run it is usually with the gain at noon, the tone at noon, and then depending on the guitar, I'll adjust the tone. And then I've got my output level. It's at roughly 2 o'clock, just to match parity on my amp. I am playing through the Acoustic Control Core 117 all solid state combo. It's a 1977. And for my guitar today, I'm using the Orange Parts Caster. There is a video of this guitar up, and you should go check it out, how I built it, and all that kind of fun stuff. It has mini buckers in it, but they are coil splittable, and I wanted to have that feature for this particular video. So let's take a listen to the 3 knob. First, my clean tone. All right, let's kick it in. So that was humbucker on the bridge. Now I'm going to just play that same thing and go through the bridge again, the neck, and then we'll go to single coil. Now to single coil. And now I'll pop it back into humbucker mode. We'll go to the neck and just do a little single note stuff. And I love the sustain, I love the dirt. When you go into single note mode, you'll understand Gilmour used this quite a bit to do really highly saturated, sustaining, long single note stuff. And he, to this day, as far as I know, still uses the 4-knob version of this pedal as one of his primary sources of sustain and beautiful distortion. All right, so you'll also notice that I have an extra knob on both of these, and what I've done here is I have created true bypass switches so that I can keep the units on 24/7, and that keeps the tubes warm and ready to engage. That is one of the flaws of this design, is that especially with this one, and I'm imagining it may be true also of the 4 knobs as well, I think it is that there can be a little lag when you engage the pedal. I like to keep the heaters on in the circuit fully engaged at all times, so I just added 2 true bypass switches to both of these pedals, just so that I can keep the circuit on and live, and then just engage it as I wish. All right, moving on to the 901. This looks more familiar as perhaps like an amp in the box type idea. You do have a 3-band EQ. It is a Marshall-esque type EQ. You have high, you have mid, you have low. And I'm running mine with the high a little past noon, the low rolled a little bit back from noon, and then I have my mid right at noon. This pedal has a lot of gain on tap. I run it with the gain actually set closer to 11 o'clock. And then of course the output just to the needs of the guitar and the needs of the amp. This pedal is a little tamer and a little bit more controllable. And what I like about it is it's very predictable, it's very smooth sounding, and it has good, it works, it plays well with both humbuckers and single coils, P90s, and Jazzmaster style pickups. I haven't found a guitar yet that I have in my collection that this pedal doesn't work well with. So this lives on my studio board most of the time. The 901s were created in the late 80s. There's also a blue version of this, which is called, you know, kind of the blues driver version. It's the 903. And that pedal is one that I'm interested in acquiring, and that'll probably be one of my next purchases, is to get one of those, because they have a little bit less gain, a little bit warmer. So that'll be interesting to bring that one into the family. As it sits, this is my main unit in the studio. I'm using this right now with my Hi-Watt Crunch 50 and love it. It does great with both tube amps and solid state, but especially solid state, because then I know all the tube goodness I'm getting is coming straight from the pedal. All right, let's go ahead and engage this guy. Turn back up. We are in humbucker mode. And you'll notice right away, this has a more warmth, and it's a little bit has a little bit more clarity. It doesn't color the tone as much as the 3-knob does. I mean, I love the character of the 3-knob, but it's definitely a little bit wilder experience. It's kind of like an SD1 versus a DS1 in the world of Boss as far as their vanilla pedals. So anyway, let's go ahead and listen to that again. We are on the neck humbucker. Go to the bridge. Single coil. Now we'll go to the humbucker mode. So that's just a brief flavor of what these pedals do. They definitely have their own characters. There are a lot of naysayers out there who say, oh, having a 12AX7, or you can use a 12AU7 or whatever, different types of preamp tube style pedals, like this, that actually use a real vacuum tube. There are a lot of people that go, well, why would you put a tube in a pedal? It's a starved plate. Now, this is a very starved plate because it's running off of 9-volt, but yet you can hear that tube at work, even in this one with the 9-volt. This has its own power transformer inside, hence it has a little bit more headroom, hence it has more of an amp-like sound. This does have a power transformer, like I said. It plugs into the wall. It's a real deal to me. Well, to me, this is like a proto-amp in a box. These came around in the late 80s, and I think that the 5-knob, 901 and 903, are very, very ahead of their time. And if you ever find one of these, like in one of your local stores or a pawn shop, or, wherever, on Reverb, you should check them out, because they're an excellent, excellent unit. And I have the same thing to say about this. This has a different character, but if I had both of these pedals on my board, I would not have any need for any other sort of distortion or gain. You can stack them together. It gets a little wild, but they are my go-tos. These are the tools that I use to get most of my overdrive and distortion sounds that are beyond low gain. All of my low gain sounds come from my electro pedals that I build myself. So, anyway, I really appreciate you watching to this point. If you have made it to this point, a subscribe would be wonderful. Leave a comment if you have any experience with BK Butler products, any that are your favorites. If I had all the money in the world, I would collect these. I would collect every variance. There's triangle versions. There's so many different versions of these pedals that were produced from the mid-80s up to the early 2000s that are super cool. And as I mentioned earlier in the video, Butler is still making them. He makes the classic 4-knob, and you can get a bias knob put on there too for a little bit of an extra charge. And they're clocking in right around $300 on Reverb. He'll make one for you. And it would be well worth it to check that out. Also, this video is in no way sponsored by BK Butler or Tube Driver or Tube Works or any of the variants. These are just things that I really enjoy playing, and they're a big part of my sound. So once again, hit that subscribe button, share, like, and leave a comment. We'll see you next time with more content. You take care.